This podcast is about the two sides of dyslexia. For example, there's a diagnosis side and there's a personal side, and how to differentiate the two and what's going to be most useful for you right now. So the big question is this: how can dyslexics like us create a place, a community, a tribe where people at any stage of life can come and solve any challenge, amplify their strengths, and ultimately help them become who they were meant to be, or in other words, conquer their dyslexia? That is the question, and this show is the answer. My name's Theo Goff, and welcome to the Conquering Dyslexia podcast. What's up, guys? I hope we're doing alright. Today I want to talk to us, everyone, about the two sides of dyslexia. Kind of break down and kind of go down this rabbit hole. Okay, what is dyslexia and how does it affect us, and put them into categories and camps for people to understand, so they know basically where each bit of knowledge can fall into place and how it's useful and how they can use it. Because to be honest, I remember basically living with dyslexia, having dyslexia early on, and then going through it, and everyone would tell me this information about this is how dyslexic thinks, and this is how you should do the work, and this is how you should do English, and this is how you should think. Yes, you have struggles, yes, and all this sort of stuff. And as I was moving on, as I was still doing a lot more research about it, and about, okay, we have these problems of reading and writing, but also we have these problems of motivation, of sense of belief, not really motivation, sorry, but believing in ourselves and self-esteem, and and feeling bad that we've got this thing, and so many others, and I didn't know how to differentiate the two from basically what I call them now, what I call physical problems that kind of when I say problems, but even challenges or whatever you want to call them, things that we're born with, and things that we're born with, and then emotional things that we develop. And I never really be able to split those two things, and because I was learning all this stuff, but it wasn't clear to me that, look, when you have dyslexia, yes, you have trouble with reading and writing, and yes, you have trouble with remembering names and other things, and sense of direction and all this other stuff. That stuff I'm born with. That stuff I'm born with, and technically, I don't believe I'm bad at directions. I do believe I'm bad at directions, but it's not my belief that makes me bad at directions, if that makes sense. I was born with it. I was born without the capabilities to, see things as good as everyone else and learn things as good as everyone else. And I'm not saying that as anything negative. I'm just saying that's the way things are, and also there's loads of beauty in that. But what I'm saying, so at the start, there's two sides of dyslexia. I kind of gone in this a bit too fast and went at a deeper level. But, so let me backtrack. When I was talking about myself in terms of learning things and how everything worked, there's a difference between diagnosis of dyslexia and living with dyslexia. A whole world of difference. Because when you start studying dyslexia and looking at dyslexia, it's very hard to look at it basically the studies of dyslexia, or basically the diagnosis side behind dyslexia, and when you're dyslexic, have that relate to your life. Because the definition of dyslexia is problem with words, sounds and symbols, but there's no general effect on general intelligence. That's the Google definition of it. And I remember reading that thinking that's the furthest thing from the truth. It's the furthest thing from the truth. I disagree with that completely. Because dyslexia is something that affects my whole life, not just one aspect in the classroom. And so as I got more into that diagnosis of dyslexia, and all about these different deficits, about processing speed deficit, sight, auditory deficit, all these other deficits, and started learning, thinking, Jesus Christ, this is depressing, and this isn't exactly what I'm experiencing. It's not exactly what I'm experiencing, because my main problem, when I left my dyslexic school, I couldn't read. When I say I couldn't, very, very low reading, very, very low writing. Didn't have a clue what was going on in lessons. But you know what my biggest issue was? Confidence, having confidence enough to do that, and that was causing me the most pain by far. Let alone I couldn't read or write and do things in the classroom. But as a 16-year-old, what mattered to me was be able to speak to that girl that's fit or whatever. But what I'm saying is that when you're dyslexic and you want help for yourself, looking at the diagnosis side of dyslexia will not help you. I might help you a tiny little bit, but that's not what will help you. And I think that there's a clear distinction too. And if you're a parent, you're expecting your son to be dyslexic, then guess what? Understanding a bit about the diagnosis of dyslexia is very useful. To be able to actually have a person who has experience with dyslexia, that knows how to diagnose it and has diagnosed it before in the past, then look at your child to diagnose them, some educational psychologist or whatever to do that, and screening tests and all these other tests. As a parent, and you think your child might have these issues, it's very, very, very useful. And before you think, if you're dyslexic, before you know that it's dyslexic, of course, that side is very, very, very useful. And even though I say it doesn't really matter if you it doesn't matter if a diagnosis or not. If you really think you're dyslexic and you're aligning the signs and symptoms, say you're dyslexic. It's the same thing. It's basically the same thing. There's no oh my god, this person's medically dyslexic and this person's, this person shows 99% of the same difficulties, but it's not dyslexic. You don't really get the comparison. Dyslexic is a word word that's been invented to describe why people are different than other people, and we can't just make sense of it. And so there's a barrier between diagnosing and your actual practical living with it. And so that's kind of that first layer. And as we dive down, I'm interested about the diagnosis of dyslexia and fascinated with it, but I don't see what I want to do. How I transformed is not when my life did change when I got diagnosed with dyslexia, but what I feel that I can add value to isn't the diagnosis of dyslexia stuff. Yes, of course, there's legacy. There's things that has to be changed, like legislation and all this other stuff. That's changed, and I know there's a lot of people are doing amazing, amazing work in that. That's just not what I want to do. I'm leave that up to them and cheer them on as much as possible. But what I'm into transformation, transforming the child. And yes, having a label saying you're dyslexic can help you, but still an external label instead of actually having an internal label saying I can do it. So anyway, there's the personal side of dyslexia. Let's look at the personal side of dyslexia and actually living with it. And I said this earlier, that we have these physical challenges, things that we're born with. For example, the actual problems the actual problems with reading and writing, the actual problems with sense directions. These are things that we're born with. We don't control these things. We don't control. It's hard to change these things. We can improve upon them. We can learn skills to be able to read better. I had the best help. I've been trying for all my life to learn to read, and guess what? I only learned to read properly 4.5 months ago, something like that, because I went through a certain method that worked. And I think it's unbelievable, and I know this method is going to transform the dyslexic industry because of how simple, how quick it is, and how many people would go out of business. It's crazy. But what I'm saying is that we have these things that we're born with, and we can't really change these things, like reading, like writing, like remember names, like sense of direction, those things. And then on the other side, we have these things that we're not born with, but we develop, like self-esteem, confidence, our beliefs, who we think we are as a person, our identity, what we think we're good at and what we think we're not good at. That's thinking, that's believing. It's not actual facts. It's what we think we're quite good at and what we think we're not good at, or what sort of person we define ourselves to be. Like, I'm not a person that exercises. You weren't born that way. You developed into that way. I'm a person that's always down. You developed that way. You can't be born depressed. You develop it through certain things that you do. And how I look at it, and basically I see loads of people when they're struggling at work because they feel people are making fun of them, and also their work sometimes doesn't get completed. They have so much pain associated to not being able to read properly, or certain thing, or writing. There's so much pain associated to that, and they got no confidence, and they think to improve their confidence, they need to improve their spelling or their reading or improve this problem they have. But so many people try and improve that thing, and they try to improve it. Because they try to improve their reading, writing, or whatever for their whole life, and it's gone to this good, and they try to do the same and similar strategies they've done to it before in the past, and if it doesn't work, they beat themselves down even more. But I want to say this: if you got dyslexia and you have low confidence, you feel like can't this, you feel bad about yourself, all these sort of different things. That is not a reading, writing, spelling, or punctuation or speaking, or any sort of kind of physical problem. That is 100% an emotional problem. If you have low confidence, work on your confidence. Don't work on some English. Don't work on something. Don't work on trying to have speech and therapy classes. And because it's a confidence problem, it's not an emotional problem. And loads of people have so many, loads of people have lost limbs. Loads of people have so many, so-called disabilities, and yet they're confident. Why are they confident? Because of what the things they've done in their head. That's confident. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to do this to be confident. It's like, for example, when girls or whatever have plastic surgery, I've got a breast implant, my butt looks bigger, and now I have more confidence. Now, if it gives them more confidence and they don't change anything about themselves for the rest of their life, then okay, that's kind of fair enough. But ultimately, if you're dealing with the fundamental problem, you're not happy with yourself because you're not up to society standards, then that should be a thing that you should want to deal with. That should be a thing that you want to develop and grow. So try and change yourself. Change yourself into something you're not, and picking some plastic inside yourself. And oftentimes that's what we want to do with our dyslexia. We want to change things. We want to put some plastic on us to try and fix something. So then we'll feel better. Instead of trying to focus on feeling better now, feeling confident now, feeling proud now, which is I think people misunderstand it, because this is how I see life. And I think it's facts. You know what I mean? In life, it's for example, you have this physical and you have this emotional. Emotional problems, confidence, self-esteem, beliefs, and you have these physical problems. 80% of all the problems come down to the emotional stuff you have. Beliefs, feelings, all these things that you developed. That comes, 80% of the problems come down to that. And yes, you have problems with reading and writing and spelling and getting things done. Of course you have problems, but it's only 20% of the pie. 80% of it is how you feel about it. Because if you feel differently, if you have different beliefs, if you understand it differently, then guess what? One, you want to find a solution so much more better, because you'll be not thinking about the problem, you'll be focusing on the solution. And number two, you'd feel so much better. It won't seem like a problem. It won't seem like a problem. And I want people to really understand this. When they feel low confidence, when they feel this, when they feel they can't do it, guess what? That's a confidence problem. That's a self-esteem problem. That's an emotional problem. And the biggest thing, you can improve it. You can improve it. And I'll tell you quickly two ways that you can improve it. Basically, when self-esteem, confidence, it's all about believing in yourself. Having belief in yourself. And there's two ways to do that. First thing, there's two different ways to do it. The first way is creating a new result in your head. For example, you have this identity about for example, me, I always had this identity of this shy, human, unconfident person that would never speak. This person that was extremely confident, that could do all these things. And I did that by sheer will, because I knew it was possible. I had to see myself as this person, really clear and really intense. And how I did that, I did the incantations. Every day and everywhere I'm getting more and more confident, okay? And doing that, seeing this person so clear and so, good, and wanting to be that person, I believed I was that person, because I said it to myself over and over and over again. And we can do that, okay? It's the first thing. Create a new result in your head. Or the second thing, get a physical new result. For example, with reading. So I never read a book in my entire life. I'm not a reader. I hate reading. I can't read. And then in this Finish the Book challenge I'm doing, you want to start and finish a book in 30 days. That's a change of identity, because you have done something you had never believed that was possible. Then look, now what can I do? Because I've done all this. I've read a book in less than 30 days out. Never read in my whole life. First book I've ever read. Now what can I do in my life? You can do so much more because of that. And so you have to create a new result, a confidence. Do something you would never ever do. And then you'd be like, I'm the person who did that. I remember with me, my thing, to improve confidence and to basically to do something that scares me every day. I would tell that thing, I said hi to 20 people every day for a little while. And I remember I did it. The first day I was nervous, but once I finished I was like, I just done that. Second day I was nervous, I finished. I was like, oh my God, I'm becoming this person. The third day I was that person. I started saying hi to people, and I looked forward to it, and it was funny. I was laughing because I got used to it. Does that make sense? because I'm changing my identity. I'm doing a new result. It's like what Tony Robbins does. It is basically he does his UPWs where people walk out on fire at the end of the first day in this little event, big event. 10, 12, 13,000 people walk on actual coals, walk on hot coals with their flames. I've done that a couple of times, and basically because I think it's impossible to walk on flames, and once they do, thinking, oh, now what can I do? I've done that. I've done what I think is possible. Now, I've done what I think is impossible. Now what else can I do? I hope that makes sense, guys. And I hope we can differentiate that differences between the diagnosis of dyslexia and the actual dyslexic's life, and then a level below that about the emotional difficulties that you have and the physical difficulties that you have. And understand this: life is 8% emotional, 20% physical. Oftentimes, we can be caught up with a physical problem and have emotional consequences to it, because we can't read, therefore we feel crap, therefore we feel dumb, therefore we feel we can't do it, and that we feel this bad thing, and because we feel this, we'll act in an unconfident way. But actually, we can't read. If you change our emotion, if you think, oh, I can't read, well, there's no reason for me to feel unconfident. I'm dyslexic. A lot of people can't read. I'm good at this, I'm good at that, I'm good at this. And really try and build yourself up into a person that's more confident, and then reading won't seem nearly as much of a problem. So I would say when you're feeling a certain negative emotion, that's the problem. I'm feeling shy, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling embarrassed. How can you not be embarrassed? How can we become a person? You know what I mean? How can you become a person and not feel these things? Or, like, for example, there's a saying I have in my Finish the Book challenge, not Conquering Dyslexia book. Not a saying, it's in the transformational section. It's this. For example, my dyslexia makes me feel humiliated. Then, okay, to find out your belief about it, because your belief is actually what making you feel that, ask this. What would I have to believe about my dyslexia in order to make me feel humiliated? What would I have to believe about my dyslexia in order to make me feel blank? Then, I would have to believe that my dyslexia makes me less than. I would have to believe that everyone is judging me 24/7. And you realise that these things that you believe are just rubbish. And the way you get rid of a belief is by questioning it, is by really reading the stupidness of it, and how it's stupid and how it's not logical. Then you get rid of that belief. I'm chatting here and going on it along, saying some stuff, but I really feel it's valuable, and I've got to go now. And anyway, guys, take care, take responsibility, and I'll see you again soon.